We have a winner from DLC Richmond, and it's time to break down their deck and see what makes a winning DLC level deck. Join me as we dive into this list on XMarksTheLore. Howdy hi ladies, gents, kids and sailors alike. Welcome to XMarksTheLore with your host, as normal, the Exploder right here. And today, we are looking at the winning list from DLC Richmond to have a look and see how darn good it is. And hopefully, with me helping you break down what each card does and why these cards are so darn good, it can give you some insight as to what makes a winning deck on the level of DLC. Let's dive straight into it, shall we? Now, I'm checking out the deck list over here over on inkdecks.com, a fantastic place to check on the deck list in case you're interested. And this one in particular is the winner of DLC Richmond. It is James Gray. Huge shout out to James out there in case he ever humbles and bumbles across this video, who knows? And let's have a look at his winning list. It is Sapphire and Emerald, which means quite a few of you guys will be thinking, oh, it's Prince Phillip all over again. There's a reason why Prince Phillip combo works so darn well, so let's take it one step at a time. First things first, starting with our one-drop characters, we only have one in the entire deck, and it is Clarabelle, the Clumsy Guest. She is here for one reason and one reason only, to be a shift target for the 7-cost Clarabelle, which we'll cover in a little bit. But on top of that, just in case you are against very particular matchups for maybe using an odd item here or there. I mean, there are some rogue decks that will be using some items. Maybe there'll be ink runners in some Sapphire decks. Maybe there'll be some odd bombs or quirky items like that, like the Robot Queen over in Steel. Amber might be utilizing the lanterns. So it's not to say that item removal isn't obsolete. It's actually quite useful. But for one-drop Clarabelle, it's nice, it's simple. If you don't see it, it's not a problem. Moving on to the two-drop characters, there's only one again. It's Tipo, and of course it's Tipo, because it's everyone's favorite or most hateful child in the entire game. This child is very, very simple. When you play him, you take another card into your inkwell and put it face down exerted if you so wish. And the great part about this is that you do not need to reveal the card that you put into your inkwell. This therefore means that you don't have to necessarily put an inkable card into the inkwell as a result of Tipo. You can select any card that's just not worthwhile right now, including the odd uninkable cards that may just be clogging your hand at this point in time. All to help you get that one step beyond so you're on 3 ink at the end of turn 2 and not just 2 like your opponent is, unless they're also ramping. Again, there's only one 3-drop character, and it's probably the most important 3-drop character you need in the whole deck for the combo to go. It is Prince Phillip, the Royal Explorer. Now, Prince Phillip on his own is actually quite a formidable card. It's a 3-cost 3-2 for 2, which immediately makes him interesting, and he has Ward. So if you are going to be going against anyone with pinpoint damaging or pinpoint removals, like with Steel when it comes to E-Hulls as Thunderbolt or Fire the Cannons, for example, your opponent can't do it. Even with little higgity-piggity damage or higgity-piggity bits that they want to select your characters for, Prince Phillip just goes, no. And that's great. It's a fantastic character. You can slap him out. Even at the end of your turn, if you don't get the combo off straight away, you know he's a character that's going to be quite hard to get rid of unless you have non-direct removal or non-direct damage options. After Phillip, we do go into our 4-drop characters, and there's 2 to choose from. Starting off with the number 1 princess that everyone's going to go crazy for. It's Cinderella, Dream Come True. 4-cost uninkable 2-3 for 1 with whatever you wish for. At the end of your turn, if you played a princess character this turn, you may put a card from your hand into your inkwell face down to draw a card. Now, she is the only princess in the deck, so some of you may be thinking, well, what's the point of slapping in a Cinderella? Aha, she triggers herself. So let's say you're on curve with Tipo, and then you're at 4 ink on turn 3 after you put something into your inkwell. You play out your Cinderella, go to the end of your turn, you put another card from your hand into the inkwell face down exerted, and draw a card because Cinderella herself is a princess, meaning you fulfilled the requirements. The trick you've got to be careful about is if you start plopping down multiple Cinderellas back to back, sure, you're going to be doing some incredible mega ramp, but you also need to be careful that you're not getting rid of a bunch of cards you actually want to use. So use this at your own free will and be very careful about it, but there's a reason why this Cinderella is that damn good. The other 4-drop character, and quite frankly is a 4-drop character I've been loving ever since he's come into the game, it's Donald Duck, the Perfect Gentleman. It's a 4-cost 2/5 for 2, shift 3. At the end of your turn, each player may draw a card. So it's optional, you don't have to draw a card if you don't need to, but if you draw a card, and because this activates at the start of your turn before you actually draw for turn, you and your opponent get to draw a card. Now you may be thinking, oh, my opponent gets to draw one as well. Not a big problem, because you're going to be micromanaging the board for a bunch of board tech a little bit later on in the deck that we'll be covering, and this Donald Duck just helps keep your hand size ready and drawing into the combo pieces you need to make sure that your game plan can get off, hopefully without a hitch. Then we move into the big boys, starting off with the only 6-cost character, John Silver, Alien Pirate. Fantastic card to slap into the deck. It is a 6-cost 5/5 for 2 with Pick Your Fights. When you play this character and whenever he quests, chosen opposing character gains Reckless during their next turn. Now Reckless makes it so that they have to challenge if able, so you can always activate Reckless on something, turn your Clarabelle or Tipo sideways if you so wish, and then it forces your opponent to attack. It shuts down aggro plays, it shuts down any cheeky things that your opponents do want to do with very specific characters. It even stops things like Tiana, so now Tiana has to attack and can't quest for 2, so she's forced into bopping one of your boys. You can micromanage John Silver very well, and if you're capable of doing that, you're able to control the board in a really crazy way. As for the 7-cost characters, we got the duo incarnate Basil and Clarabelle. Basil first, whenever you play him, you may return a chosen character back to the player's deck. That means you can return one of yours if you really need to, or you can just return something your opponent has back into their hand to simply remove a problem from the board, so your opponent has to replay them again. He has a 5/4 for 2, which makes him really well statted, and whenever he quests, he forces your opponent to then discard a card at random, which therefore helps you with controlling hand size whilst you're controlling board state, which is a very good thing. The other 7 cost is of course what I alluded to earlier, the Shift 5 Clarabelle. She's a 5/6 for 2, and at the end of your turn, if a chosen opponent has more cards in their hand than you do, you draw cards until you have the same number. It's the best way to keep your hand size up. If your opponent has less cards than you have and you still have your Clarabelle out, that's a good thing. Don't be upset by that. You have a 5/6 for quest for 2 on your side of the board that you could do stuff with, and is a relatively big threat. So you're winning at that point. Don't be upset. This Clarabelle is fantastic, and that is why. But of course, last character in the deck, and probably the #1 character that the whole combo bounces off of, it is the 9-cost 6/6 for 3 Prince Phillip, Vanquisher of Foes. So he is a shift 6 with evasive, and when you play this character, you banish all opposing damaged characters. And this is where we get into the combo, and even though I haven't gotten into the actions yet, I'm going to talk about how the base combo works in case you've never heard of or you've never seen the Prince Phillip combo in action. Effectively, how it would normally work is that your opponent will have a Prince Phillip out on the board for 3-drop. With that Prince Phillip, they'll normally sing Malicious, Mean and Scary. That puts 1 damage onto each opposing character. Once that's resolved, he'll then pay the amount of ink needed to shift Prince Phillip into the big Prince Phillip, meaning that all the damaged characters that are now on your side of the board are now banished for a huge control effect, and effectively one of the few board wipes that are still in the game and playable at this level. That is what makes Prince Phillip so good, but don't just sleep on the ability. Outside of being able to board wipe, he's also a 6/6 for quests for 3 and already has evasive ingrained on him. That's not an easy boy to take out, and you're going to need to put in some hearty resources to knock that Prince Phillip off his horse. Now the characters are pretty darn great, but the actions help to bolster the characters and to make everything go burr, so let's break that down. we've got Develop Your Brain and Improvise as our 1-drops, 4 develops, 2 improvises. We want Develop Your Brain in order to basically draw cards when we need to, and to organize our top 2 so that we draw whatever we need, put back at the bottom whatever we don't need. Improvise can also be very useful. It can buff our attack by 1 in case there is a pesky threat that we do need to tackle into for one reason or another. But the most important thing Improvise does is also helps us draw a card. We want to benefit from our card draw when it comes to Develop Your Brain or Vision of the Future rather than Improvise, hence why there's only 2 improvises in here. But more card draw is not a bad thing. The fact that Improvise also gives us an extra attack gives us that little bit of an edge in those challenging instances. But of course we have Sail the Azurite Sea and Vision of the Future. Vision is effectively the bigger develop, but instead of checking the top 2, you check the top 5, which can very much help you out when it comes to seeing what your next plays could be. You don't want to pop Vision out unless you're a really comfortable spot and you want to make sure that you're finding those very important combo pieces that you are after. So let's say, for example, you have in your hand the Phillip, and you have the big Phillip, but you don't have Malicious, Mean and Scary, but you have in your hand Develop and Vision. You're probably going to play Vision more than Develop because you don't know whether it's going to be in the top 2 or the top 5, so you might as well search for 5 to heighten your chances of finding the last part of your combo rather than playing Develop, which only gives you a very small window of opportunity. And of course, what can I say about Sail the Azurite Sea? More card draw, more ramping. But unlike Tipo, where you can take any card into your inkwell face down exerted, Sail the Azurite Sea effectively allows you to ink twice during your turn. And so, at any point during your turn, you can ink once as normal, and then ink twice as a result of Sail the Azurite Sea. But as soon as you end your turn, Sail is gone, and it doesn't linger for any future turns. Just remember that. Before we get into the song cards, there's also one other action card which is a very good 1-drop splash in this deck. Bend to My Will. Each opponent discards all cards in their hand. So with Bend to My Will, it's a very useful card for the situations when you need it. And there's only 1 copy in here because you don't necessarily need to see it all the time in order for the game plan to work. It's a very handy tech piece if you're going against an opponent that also has an abundance of card draw, and effectively you want to control their hand. You can Bend to My Will, and then after bending to My Will, as long as you have a Basil out on the board, Basil is then able to micromanage and control your opponent's hand size, maybe even stopping them from being able to consistently draw cards in general, which can be a very big boon to you. You don't need it all the time with every single matchup, but when you do need it, it is here to fully take control. And then of course we have the songs to cap the deck off. The most important one, like I said in the combo earlier, is Malicious, Mean and Scary. A 3-cost inkable song where it puts 1 damage counter on all opposing characters. Now you've got to bear in mind, because it has the word put, it is not dealing damage. Therefore, it means it gets over things like resist, because it's not dealing damage, resist doesn't come into play, so the damage goes on fully, and it also gets over ward, because you're not choosing the characters that this effect resolves on. This resolves on every opposing character, so ward doesn't even come into play. It's a fantastic song that is very, very pesky, and unless you're able to get this damage off, or maybe even bounce your characters back into your hand, or do something, you know what's going to come next, and it's probably going to happen on the same turn, and that is going to be a big youch for you. To help us with micromanaging the field and maybe adding things back into our opponent's hands, as well as maybe kicking some things back into our hands if we need to, we have a couple of copies of Mother Knows Best. We don't need to see it all the time. It's in very specific matchups yet again. It's another 3-cost song, so a bunch of our characters will be able to just pop it off when need be, especially the Cinderella. Cinderella's probably a fantastic choice for singing Mother Knows Best, You're Welcome, and Malicious, Mean and Scary in this deck, because once she's played out, she's nothing more than just a 2-3 for 1. And unless you want to bounce her back into the hand to use her effect again, she's basically a bop stick or a singing person at this point in time. So just use her, sing what you need to. Mother Knows Best is very good anyway as a control piece. Again, combining it with Basil in order to maintain the hand state, you're really good to go. It's a great card. And last by no means least, You're Welcome. It can benefit you, it can screw over your opponent, and there's nothing quite singing You're Welcome with one of your 4-cost characters, getting rid of a character your opponent has on their side of the board, letting them draw 2 cards, and then all of a sudden, bend to my will. By doing that combination alone, you are forcing your opponent to discard an additional 3 cards that they wouldn't have had if you just played Bend to My Will normally. But even outside of that, if you're struggling with getting any of your combo pieces out, if you don't have the right things in your hand that you quite need at this point in time, you can always play You're Welcome to bounce back some of the stuff that you have back into your hand so you can draw some additional cards and hopefully get you to where you need to go. This is where also this, alongside Develop Your Brain and Vision of the Future, can also be very useful to micromanage the top cards of your deck to make sure that when you do draw additional cards, if you choose to do it that way, you're going to get into your combo pieces and you're off to the races again. And with that said, it's a very beautiful, very easy to learn, understand list. And everything is here to sort out a form of control as well as setting up your big combo. And even then, you can win with this deck without even necessarily popping off the Prince Phillip combo. You can still win this deck quite well because look at it. You have your 4 Prince Phillips, your 4 Donald Ducks, your 4 John Silvers, your 3 Basils, your 4 Clarabelles, and your 4 Prince Philip shiftables that all quest for 2 each. If you just get a couple of these combo pieces out, and as long as you're able to ramp decently in the early game, you're going to be absolutely fine. And even if you're struggling with your ramp game because your mulligans weren't kind to you, there are ways to get back into the game at a decent pace. The mainstay with this is that you need the right combo pieces at the right time against the right things your opponent brings out. If you just start playing off the combo willy-nilly, then you might be able to seize the day, but it's all about timing. The maximum amount of damage you do to your opponent could be the difference between you winning or losing. Now, whenever I've gone against the deck like this in any capacity from my personal experience, the deck does not tend to quest early. It tends to wait until it has the board state, until it has the combos set up, and then when it has a board state better than you, where it's able to effectively force you to catch up to them, they'll micromanage the board so that you gain reckless all the time and can't quest. They're able to quest for 2 to 3 each time with each character that's out. They're able to keep their hand state and their board state at a very high rate. And because of the lack of big board wipe removals, ironically outside of Prince Phillip, there's not a lot you're going to be able to do once the combo comes out unless you have some quirky tech pieces of your own to knock it off the pedestal. Well done to James Gray from DLC Richmond, you did a fantastic job. Watched a couple of the games myself before making this video and it is such a great time. I'm going to expect to maybe see some variation of this at Ghent because I will be over in Ghent come March of 2026, and it'll be interesting to see if the deck develops and adds any new combo pieces, or if the deck effectively stays the same and has the same staying power when we get to DLC Ghent. But needless to say, fantastic deck, highly recommend trying it out. Just bear in mind one thing, this is not a cheap deck. This can be quite expensive, especially with the Clarabelles, so be mindful with everything that you need to purchase from here if you are planning on getting this deck yourself for set champs or any other major events before Winter Spell comes up. And anything today, is there anything else you would want to know about this deck or DLCs in general? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below, and your comment could be brought up in the following video. And bearing that in mind, we actually have some comments from my last video when we talked about the state of single player decks to bring up here, just as a little reward for you guys that stayed to the end. Thank you very much, by the way. We have King Kiko Man, who says, love this. I think the Ravensburger / Disney need to remember is the game growth is driven by retention. If you buy a starter deck and go into most shops, you're going to get your tail kicked and never want to play again. If Disney makes a deck that can at minimum play against B or C tier meta decks, they give people a taste of what that game can be. We have the Inky Hour that says, this is so true, they really need to make some changes. At least for me to start buying them, they have no value to me. Planet Sadala says, Ravensburger has definitely noticed that their single player decks are the least selling product. This product is always on the shelf and doesn't sell outside the release week of the set. They took a step in the right direction in set 9 when they made the Rainbow Fall super rares. I understand RB does not want to put Legendary in the single player decks because they want to incentivize players to buy packs from the current set. A nice compromise would be to put cards from older sets like Mamari, Maui Shark, Tamatoa, Scrooge McDuck, etc. Thank you guys very much for your comments. I either did or did not get to reading them all at the end of this video, but if you were featured, you have a chance of getting featured in the next video if you leave a comment down in this one with any of your thoughts that I brought up involving the great deck that won at DLC Richmond. With all of that said and done, I'll be seeing you on the next one where we go out there onto the Azurite Sea with some more Lorcana action. If you've enjoyed this today, be sure to subscribe for some more Lorcana action coming your way in the future and join the most explosive crew out there on the high seas. Until next time, folks, set sails, weigh anchor, and I'll be seeing you next time. Yeah!